Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our virtual debate table discussing the need for a new social contract for a post-COVID era. My name is Roberto Alemano. I'm a professor of law and the founder of The Good Lobby. Most observers today agree that at the very bottom of today multiple crises affecting the world lies a difficult question. How can we renew the social contract that is governing society? The social contract is nothing else but a unifier among different interests, different groups, different systems that enable them to coexist peacefully. Isn't about time to rebuild? And in the affirmative, how can we do that? We're going to try to address these questions with a very distinguished lineup of that are able to introduce along the way. And in particular, we're going to try to give them the chance to show the kind of contribution they can both individually and collectively provide to such a solution. So without any further ado, let me turn to Ivo Mechels, who is the CEO at Euroconsumers, for his introductory remarks before turning to our panel. Ivo, you have the floor.
Thank you, Alberto. Thanks a lot. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we have got a very nice half day with interesting sessions, interesting debates, Q&A, starting very strongly and positively with the message of Commissioner Didier Reynders, and Commissioner for Consumers. So indeed, I will kick off this last part of the day, half day, with the final debate and some thoughts and learnings that I gathered. And that's the fantastic thing about this streaming event. You can gather lots of particular things. So we have all received a kind invitation from Monique Goyens from BEUC to read more than the actions of the new consumer agenda, because the new consumer agenda is full of ideas. We also got an invitation from at the other end of the globe in Brazil from the Consumer National Secretary of the Ministry of Justice in Brazil, Professor Juliana Domingues, reaching out to Proteste to collaborate in a new modern consumer agenda in Brazil. Coming back to this side of the globe, in Spain, we have received a nice invitation from Mr. Escudero, the Vice Minister for Consumer Affairs, calling for the collaboration with us, with consumer organizations. And he says, I quote, "We need your proposals and maybe need also your critics." Mr. Gozzi from the European Parliament in Italy, Italian citizen, calling for a new approach around consumer responsibility and consumer protection. And this was one of the keywords of Professor Jeffrey Sachs that we heard speaking of power and responsibility. So, ladies and gentlemen, needless to say that consumers are at the heart, the center of the economy, also the digital economy. Since no product, no service, no process can be developed nowadays without the support, the collaboration, the data of consumers. And I'm not talking about only the consumer decisions. No, the power of consumers is much bigger. I'm talking about consumers with their collective rights, their positions and demands, starting before and going beyond the purchasing decision or operation. Now, Professor Alemano, despite the worries, the issues, the problems with the pandemic and the economic and societal crisis, this pandemic also offers a momentum, an opportunity, as I said in the speech in the introduction. We have the chance now to restart many processes. And the future, this is clear, the future, we have heard all half day, needs to be more sustainable. European Commission is setting out clear lines in its Green Deal And again, quoting Professor Jeffrey Sachs, who we heard just a while ago, has affirmed that Europe's Green Deal is the first comprehensive plan to achieve sustainable development in any major region. And as such, it has the potential to become a global benchmark. And he also said, as I quoted before, he was speaking about the power and responsibility for consumers and reaching out to inform and to empower consumers. We will definitely do so. So I think the direction is clear, but this doesn't make it less challenging. We need, on the one hand, to recover economically and financially from this crisis. We have to end this pandemic crisis, as Professor Sachs also said. And on the other hand, we must generate wealth on other bases, on more sustainable basis. So yes, for decades, governments, global companies, consumer organizations, environmental organizations have been talking about sustainability. We have known probably hundreds or thousands of public and private conferences and seminars. Well, now it is time to act, walk the talk, as Monique Goyen said before. First of all, sustainability is the defining challenge for our generation and the next generations, our children, our grandchildren. The scientific evidence is overwhelming. We cannot keep on going as in a business as usual mode. Secondly, a real change in the way we live cannot be done without consumers and consequently without consumer organizations. So these are exactly the reasons why we have developed our initiative Approved by Tomorrow, which is a set of principles putting the consumers at the center of the sustainable debate and contributing with a lot of other stakeholders. So needless to say also that we support totally the new consumer agenda, and we are very happy also to have heard in the beginning of the forum that Didier Reinders, the European Commissioner, supports fully also our initiative Approved by Tomorrow. We like to support these sustainability initiatives developed also by global market players, as we have heard also in this forum, the representatives of Google, the representatives of Amazon, to join forces to empower consumers to make decisions that prove to be as good tomorrow as they are today. So I want to close this point now, Alberto, or this part, confirming that the basis for a new social contract for a post-COVID era are already given. And it is our duty as consumers and as a consumer organization, Euroconsumers, to be part of this transition, or even better, even more, to lead this transition. We at Euroconsumers, we are ready to take up this challenge, this new role, and we will do that together with all responsible stakeholders and actors, if it is in Europe or South America or elsewhere. We are here, we are on board. Thank you, Alberto.
Thank you, Ivo, for setting the scene so nicely for our conversation. And let me open now our panel for a round of brief reactions to your remarks and based on some of the questions I will be asking. So let me turn first to Giorgia Beltino, Director of Global Affairs and Public Policy for the South Europe region at Google. Ivo argues that we have been talking for too long about sustainability, and sustainability today, which at the end of the day is about paying attention to all stakeholders, not only to shareholders, is no longer a nice to have, but is a must have. Is a real precondition for our survival and for our economic progress. how sustainability looks like at Google, Georgia. Can you give us a sense of what is changing within your company?
Very much, Euroconsumer, for the invitation. Thank you, Ivo, for this very interesting opening remarks. Let me tell you something. Not only I share the point that we need to walk the talk, but I would like to add another point that is, I think it's an African way of saying that if you go alone, you go fast, but only if you go together, you can go far. And I think that this is the point now, is how we achieve having different stakeholders having the same objective and moving in the same direction. And in this respect, of course, I think that companies and private companies have a big responsibility. They also have a big opportunity, but definitely they have a big responsibility and they really need to walk the talk. So all the initiatives, also legislative initiatives that are in the pipeline to, let's say, encourage private companies to really put the environment and sustainability at the center are key. At Google, I've been at Google for quite a long time, although the company is pretty young. It is just 22 years old. And I've seen basically three phases that we can summarize with 3 decades. And of course, we are in the third decade. In the first decade, so since the beginning until 2007, what Google has tried to do and has done is to be a company that is carbon neutral in our operation. And we have done this by pushing for energy efficient way of and initiatives to do operation. Then the second wave, from 2007 until 2017, that has been focused on achieving 100% renewable energy. And this has been done by matching our electricity consumption with clean energy for all our data center and our offices. But the third wave, that is the wave we live in and the decade that we live in, I think it's the most interesting and also the most challenging. That is the announcement that we have done to have a strategy to become fully green. So basically to have a totally decarbonized electricity supply, which means that basically we use all the energy that is green energy. So this is a Google commitment, but I would like to finish by retaking the words of Ivo, that here the commitment is a commitment that is on the shoulder of each of us, and so it's on the shoulder of the companies, but not only as an individual and a personal commitment, and this is what Google is doing, but what I found particularly interesting is how you can empower as a company other people, other parties, in this case, how you can empower the citizens, the consumers, to really be effective in their commitment to be green or to be sustainable. And here, let me give you 2 examples that perhaps of tools and things that we do every day, but we don't think a lot about it. One example of one tool that can empower people to be more sustainable is that on maps, today you have in every country of the world the possibility to find the place where to pick the electric car and the electric sharing bikes. This is a way to encourage people to use this tool. And the same way now Google tells you, again with maps, a way, other ways, alternatives paths that are more carbon neutral paths, etc., etc. There are many other examples. But the point I would like to make is that it's great and it's interesting when you try to do something of course, as your personal commitment, but also allowing and empowering other parties, other people, in this case, the consumers, to be more sustainable.
Thank you, Georgia, for providing some concrete illustrations of how sustainability has been integrated into your operation and how you're looking into the future, which is already present for a variety of reasons. Victor Viñuales, you are a director at the Ecological and Development Foundation in Spain. You have heard what Georgia gave us as illustrations. Is it the kind of contribution we might expect from a company like Google? Is there something else you would like to see? What is your reaction? Victor?
My reaction is before the companies in the world, no, only maximizing the profit for the share, and now we need companies with both goals: good for the company and good for the world, for the common program in the world, SDGs and Paris Agreement. No, we are living a very, very difficult situation, and we need in the next 10 years change laws, transition, technological transition, and cultural transition. No, and we need building a strong alliance between public authorities, NGOs, and companies, because I haven't time. No, the scientists say we need do fast, more fast, more fast. No, for me is the moment, and big companies and small companies need move. And in my opinion, big companies have, of course, more responsibility, because in all chain the buy when the providers, no, is very important in order to change the small companies.
Thank you, David, for highlighting the need to move away from principle of shareholder maximization, this idea that there is a shareholder primacy, and to enter into a stakeholder capitalism, which is the kind of debate we're having in these days. Let me turn to David Scuderi, Senior Manager Public Policy at Amazon, and to get a sense of what is actually happening with them. There's a lot happening within the company also due to COVID. What is sustainability there? How is it taken into your own operation nowadays? Your company, Amazon, hasn't not been spared by severe criticism when it comes to the lack of internalization of social cost, environmental cost, low wages. So this is a challenge for you in terms of perception. How do you tackle this? How do you take sustainability seriously? Can you illustrations, please?
Yes, Alberto, and thank you for the question. So first of all, I would like to go back to the point you were making initially. I mean, you spoke about a social contract as a unifier. And in this respect, I would like to highlight three aspects that were particularly salient this year. So the first one, of course, is the COVID crisis, as the ongoing health and economic difficulties we face across Europe, I mean, as a society. The second aspect is, I mean, what role Amazon has played in all of this, and how we have remained laser focused on sustainability throughout the last year. So overall, in the course of the past year, Amazon had already implemented social distancing. We had invested in masks and gloves, in enhanced cleaning of all our facilities in order to keep and maintain the safety of our employees. But we asked ourselves, what could we do more in order to help the societies we operate in, and in order to keep our employees safe? We knew that testing would be an important tool, and that testing supply would be probably tight because there was a lot of demand around, of course. So we decided to pursue in-house COVID-19 testing, even though Amazon had no expertise in medical diagnostics, as you can imagine. So since then, we have launched our own testing program in order to keep our employees safe, and we are expanding these testing programs across our facilities in the United Kingdom as we speak. The impact of solving this for Amazon it was huge, and it was huge for different reasons that impact the customers on one side, but also our selling partners, so all the small and medium-sized enterprises that rely on Amazon for their livelihood. It was instrumental for our customers as they were relying on essential goods. So we had to keep up with deliveries of essential goods to the communities we were serving. It was equally important for our selling partners because keeping them going meant basically to secure their income, to secure jobs. So let me just mention a few key figures, which I think will resonate well with you, Alberto. So in the course of the past year, more than 50% of our 150,000 European-based SMEs basically generated 9 billions in export. They have created 270,000 jobs. If we would have somehow stopped our operation, or if we have, would have, had any issues, in our supply chains, they would have been at severe risk of, undergoing financial distress. So the world has clearly undergone a massive shift in 2020 with the emergence of COVID-19. As we face challenges, and there have been many, as you can imagine, throughout the year, we have remained laser focused on addressing the urgency of the climate crisis, and we have remained focused on the climate pledge, our commitment to reach net zero carbon emissions by 2040, a decade ahead of the Paris Agreement. And what we think, and this is my concluding sentence, then Alberto will pass on to you. What we think, it is important to send clear signals to the market. And this is what we have done with the largest order of electric vehicles that has ever been placed, 100,000 electric vehicles that we have ordered. So that is a clear signal to the market in which direction we are going. And that is just on top of the orders we have placed, for example, recently with Daimler here in Europe. Another signal is the one we are sending to consumers. We have recently launched Climate Pledge Friendly on our marketplace so that consumers can search for sustainable products, and that sustainable products are basically being flagged to them and highlighted to them in order to incentivize sustainable consumption. I leave it here for the moment, Alberto, but I'm happy to answer any follow-up question.
Thank you, David, for highlighting some of your ongoing efforts at Amazon that reflect both internally innovation, your own employees, the wider ecosystem in which you operate, your choices as a retailer that might act as nudges vis-a-vis consumers for making sustainable choices, and your broader pledges. Let me turn to Paolo Martinello, Vice President of Board of Administrators at Euroconsumers, for a reaction for Georgia's and David illustrations about what sustainability looks like and means for those major companies. What's your reaction, Paolo?
Thank you, Alberto. It's a pleasure to see you again in a Euroconsumer event. Let's start from your introduction, a new social contract on sustainability for rebuilding the economy. If this is the point, if this is what we are discussing about, I think that something more concrete should be done. The new agenda, the new consumer agenda, and also the Green Deal that the European Commission has put on the table push us to go forward in the sense of clarify, go not only words, not only slogans. It's a too theoretical discussion, the one that we are doing, but we should try to do something more concrete for consumer and also for companies. The new, as Monique said, it's true that in the new consumer agenda there are some good ideas, and now they have to be put into practice. For example, what does it mean to be sustainable for a product, for example? This is not clear at all. I think that Google or Amazon can have their standard that could be quite different from the Euroconsumer standard. Let's discuss about that. And let's try to find a common evaluation of the market. Because what we are doing as consumer organization is just our job, what we have already done in the past. That is, for example, testing the product. But testing the sustainability of a product is a difficult job. It's much more expensive, and much more work, because we have to see the life of the product before the coming into the market and after the coming into the market. What does it mean green? What does it mean not early obsolescence? What does it mean circular? There are a number of criteria. So the reaction to what Google and Amazon said before is, of course, I am happy that they are green as companies. This is not what we are interested to discuss about. This is your business, and it's okay, and it's good that you do that. The main point for me is the last point that David mentioned. What are you doing for consumer in the field of sustainable development, of good environmental impact of product? And I think that this should be the base for our dialogue. Of course, I would prefer to discuss with a number of platforms, of big players. We know that the market is a bit concentrated. So waiting for a more competitive market, we have to start to discuss with you on this base. What are you doing? And I have a number of concrete questions. Now we don't have the time to answer to all of that, but what are you ready to use our independent standard tested products in your algorithm to give advice and to give information and transparent information to consumer? Are you ready to fight against fake rating of consumer? We know very well the greenwashing, and we fight it against that. We will have in a short time a sustainable washing, because it's very common now to hear companies that claim to be good for the climate change and so on and so on. So we have to verify, we have to be serious. This is a question of trust of consumer. We are ready to do that with you and to challenge you to see what are you doing and what we can do together on that topic.
Thank you, Paolo. I think it was clear to everybody what you're saying. If we want to enter into a new social contract, we need to go beyond CSR or incremental changes that might have been accelerated by COVID, but we need something deeper. Let me turn perhaps now to the policymaker, to Veronica Manfredi, who is Director for Quality of Life at the European Commission, and who has the big picture of what European policymakers would like to do to ensure such a transformation, with major consultations ongoing, one in particular on sustainable corporate governance, that might actually go and tackle some of the root causes for making such a shift from shareholder maximization towards a stakeholder economy that might feed into a new social contract. Can you give us a sense of what you are concocting within the Commission and the EU these days on a new social contract for Europe?
First of all, let me tell you that I really believe that we wouldn't even be discussing about European Green Deal if so many citizens, starting with a little girl called Greta Thunberg, who started her work alone, to build on the nice African anecdote brought forward by Mrs. Sabeltino, but she managed to lead with her so many others who are also consumers, each of them. I have participated myself to some of these climate change protests, so to say, and I must tell you, I really see people that are asking for sometimes also very simple things. Where are the bike lanes? Where are, we want to buy even more organic farming products. Give us indeed ideas about how to make the best, the cleanest choice. And I think that the European Green Deal, which has come after European elections, as you all remember, was the result of the fact that we saw out of the electoral results really a significant growth in greener appetite. So somehow I would go back to the initial part of this conversation to say, yes, it's true. When the demand changes and changes in a significant manner, somehow this has a really important impact. And this demand has changed because the science has become so clear, and I would say the irreversibility of the damages that our planet is suffering are starting to be so visible to everyone, that I know that behind the climate change commitment of so many companies, including the big giant we have with us today, that I congratulate, is the fact that now it's 7 years in a row that at the World Economic Forum, problems, business risk linked to the planetary crisis are top of the agenda. I deal in my daily capacity also with water, and I can tell you that water scarcity is becoming really something that hits company. And when I think of digital operators who have constant issues with cooling off their data centers, this is really tangible. So I think, however, that without the move coming from the people, this would have not been possible. The European Green Deal is the systematic response, I think, really the first ever fully integrated response that look at the 4 planetary crises we are going through, which are climate change, biodiversity loss, completely unsustainable use of resources. And when you look into that, you will see that there is a lot to do with unsustainable consumption and pollution, for which I'm more specifically in charge, there where I have, and which boils down to the air that we breathe and the water that we drink. You know, sometimes when I see that indeed we are in the condition where we are because of the COVID-19 pandemic, I cannot refrain myself from saying to, let's say, the most scared people, imagine if ever we get contamination of our water. Imagine if ever we have deep peaks of pollution that unfortunately are sometimes still witnessed in some parts of Europe in terms of the air that we breathe. Every year across the globe, 7 million people die prematurely because of air pollution. We have a global pandemic every year. Every year across the globe, over 5 million people die because of water-related problems. So, you know, here this brings me to what is the role of consumers? Enormous. And if you allow me also because of my previous professional past, the role of consumer organization is enormous because we are in a moment of transformation, and behind this absolutely legitimate demand of every single consumer to understand how clean, how really green certain offers, certain products are, is the power of well-organized consumer organization to check, to control, next to better enforced consumer protection authorities everywhere, working in cooperation with environmental protection and other authorities. So I do believe that the future is indeed greener and more digital, and I personally believe that the digital actors, especially the big giants we have with us today, have a real chance now to prove that really they're embracing the sustainability challenge in a way that, as you are hinting to, Mr. Martinello, makes it easier for the people to understand really, without any misleading claims, fake reviews, etc., what is best for them. And it's true that we have job to do in European Commission because we are working a lot on environmental footprint. And I think with in particular, the Sustainable Product Policy Initiative that has been announced in the Circular Economy Action Plan, we will be able to help a lot. But already today, so many things can be done. I think of the colleague from Amazon and myself, of course, also one of your clients. Packaging, there is so much that can be done in order to reduce it, while securing the safety, etc. Transport, indeed, I'm happy that you're investing into electric vehicles, but so much more can be thought about. I think of Google and I think of data from satellites that can be better displayed to facilitate also behavioral change in the way we move, in the way we travel, in the way we consume. So exciting future ahead, provided we are all honestly together in this transformation. And thanks again for inviting me.
The role of consumers in change, in creating expectations in this new economy. Georgia was highlighting the need to align the interest. We ensure there are more alignment and not disalignment. And Pablo highlighted the risk of a new round of sustainability washing. A question for Matthew Schertz, the journalist among us. How today we can distinguish good companies from good marketing? It's easy, we all know, but what is your take? Because at the end of the day, we need to distinguish between good companies and good marketing if we want to build a social contract.
Well, thank you very much. I think that it's very difficult right now to distinguish between really good companies and not so good companies, and products that are truly sustainable and products that are not sustainable. It involves an enormous amount of information about where things were mined, where ingredients were taken from, how they arrived there, and we don't have a lot of protection in that way. What I think we all need to do, and I've been working on this subject for 20 years now, is I think we need to listen to Greta Thunberg, to cite her again, and we need to act like our house is on fire, because it is on fire. And we have really now run out of time. And the biodiversity crisis, the climate crisis, the desertification crisis, the crises all over the world are catching up to us very quickly. So what I think we need to do is all of us need to work on developing a solutions economy where we start to make money by selling solutions. And that means we have to be able to prove and to show and to convince people that these solutions are really viable and that they really are sustainable, that they really will guarantee us a better future. And so in order to do that, we kind of have, I think we all have to turn all of our efforts to these questions, particularly to the climate question, perhaps first, to pollution questions, to poverty questions. How do I know that there is not deforestation from the Amazon in a product that I'm buying? I don't really know that. So we need consumer protection agencies to guarantee that. We now have the digital technology that could make that a real possibility. We have to dedicate that technology to that guarantee, and we have to start talking more and more and all the time basically about the solutions economy. One of the things that we've noticed that I think is exciting about right now is how incredibly connected we are. What a bat does in China has totally affected the entire world in just a question of months. And at the same time, science has been able to respond, and we now already have a vaccine. Let's put that kind of response, that kind of house on fire emergency response towards the climate crisis, the diversity crisis, the poverty crisis, and let's start learning how to put consumers, companies, and dedicate all of our efforts to a solutions economy, because this is, I think, what life has got to be about now.
Thank you, Matthew. Very clear. The world was caught by surprise, but everybody played a role. So it's not such a bad story at the end of the day. Everybody played a role. There was responsiveness in the economic system, in the political one, across socioeconomic spectrum. It is not entirely a negative story. I think it's important to close on such a less gloomy, I would say, tone than the one that you might have appeared at the beginning. We now need to wrap up, but I would like to go back to each of you and give you 60 seconds to send a message, possibly of hope, but also a message that sounds realistic, and trying to figuring out what is going to be realistic to expect to happen in the coming year, in the post-COVID world. What are going to be the majors of change? Investors, employees, consumers, they all have a role to play, but where the major driver will it be? Georgia, to you for 60 seconds.
Okay, this is a challenge for 60 seconds. What I would like to see more after the COVID crisis is basically three things, and the speakers really inspire me. is concreteness, more concreteness in what is done around sustainability, more working together, and this is really in the words of Mr. Martinello, working together in a concrete way, but let's work together toward a common objective, and transparency. Transparency, everyone talked about transparency. I think is absolutely important for the product, for everything that we do. But if we abide to these 3 rules, really working together in a very concrete way and putting transparency at the basis or as an horizontal level of everything that we do, I think that we can achieve this. And in my experience with the Consumer Association and with the Euroconsumer, we started, let's say, from far, where we didn't really know each other. And there was this call for concreteness, and it was in another field, of course, it was about digital well-being. But we came together analyzing the problem and come up with joint actions that were also touching our product. So it is possible. What I say is that if you want and if you abide to these 3 rules, it is possible to change things altogether.
Thank you, Georgia, for being so concise on your 3 points. Accountability, at the end of the day, might address the question of how to distinguish a good company and good marketing. Victor Viñuales, your take.
Now in Europe, the European Green Deal and the Next Generation Fund are big opportunities, no? Big opportunities. In my opinion, public, private, and social entities must work together, building alliance to push the shared common goals: clean air, rebuilding homes, solar roofs, circular economy. It's time to cooperate in order to build a new economy, greener, more inclusive, and more fair. We need just transition now because we need resolve 4 crises together: health, economic, social, and climate crisis. We need one unique alternative in order resolve these 4 crises.
Thank you. David Scuderi from Amazon.
Thank you, Alberto. I would like to conclude picking up a few points that have been mentioned, in this panel, and specifically dialogue, which I think, is paramount. And without dialogue among different stakeholder groups, I think there will also be little progress, on different topics. The other one that has been mentioned, I believe, was science and also trust. So we deeply believe and we deeply care about the trust that our customers have in us. And this is why everything we do is science-based. This is why the programs we have launched with which we are identifying products as sustainable on our marketplace is because they're relying on official labels, like, for example, the European Union label, or like the Nordic Swan, or the famous Blue Angel label out of Germany. So trust is paramount to us, and it is key to our programs. We want to achieve a sustainable flywheel, in the sense that if we can attract more consumers in purchasing sustainable products, we will have more brands and manufacturers that offer sustainable products. And that will be a virtuous cycle that will inspire more sustainability at the consumer's end, with retailers, with manufacturers. So we think that is the way to go in order to achieve more sustainable choices.
Thank you, David. Paolo, your wish, your hope, what is realistic to expect?
If you allow me, Alberto, I would like to reverse your question and say what I would not like to see in the future, because there are also risks that we did not discuss today. But if you put our seminar, our forum, in the reality, in the nude and strong street reality of today, there are risks. And I would like to say 2 of them that I hope not to see realized in the post-COVID era, I would say. The first one is that the big amount of money, the recovery fund, or how do we call it, that is will probably go into our economy, will not go to save the old economy. Here we have a big opportunity. I don't like the name of opportunity when we talk about a pandemic that caused thousands and thousands of deaths. But anyway, this big amount of money is ready to be put into the economy. And if we want to rebuild the economy, this money should not go to the old companies and the public and the private companies that has nothing to see with the sustainable production and so on. So this is the first fear that I have. The second one is that borders that have had disappeared, at least at the European level, and not only at European level, have been rebuilt because of health reasons. I fear that these borders will survive to the COVID emergency. We see many signals of that, psychological, by what is produced near your home, in your country, in your region, in your village. The localism is an evil from a consumer point of view, is an irrational criteria of choice. Has nothing to do with sustainability, with green product, nothing to do with that. Is a pure ideological approach to think that what is built near my home is more sustainable than what has been built in another country. This is ideological. These are commercial interests that are playing. Okay, I stop.
Thank you for convey these two, for flagging those two issues, right? The selective nature of funding, the opportunity to make them conditional on the respect of sustainability requirements, and the fact that Europe might be actually going back and not to return to status quo. And the issue is not preserving the status quo, is potentially advancing it. That's what we need, right? Veronica, to you for a concise wrap up.
Thank you very much. The thoughts that come to my mind are the following. First, your choice matters. So I also believe you cannot do everything on your own, of course, but your choice does matter. Second, engage with, indeed, consumer organization, engage with societal movement, engage in the city where you are, engage, understand the topics, inform yourself, be curious, ask for more, don't stop. And third, if I may say, don't be afraid. We live in an era of so many uncertainties, and yet I do believe, whilst absolutely seeing the risks, that this is one of the most interesting and potentially creative era that mankind can go through, provided indeed that we work together. The brains are there. Be on the right side of history, transform it. Together we can do it.
Thank you, Veronica. Matthew, your final message?
I'd like to two quick things. One, let's spend money. We were able to find a lot of money for COVID, for vaccine acceleration, and we were able to find money for the military. Spend money on the environmental crisis, on the climate crisis, and put some of that money into the media. We do need to talk more about this. We need to have funding available so that this is our most important subject, and we need our best people dedicating their talent to writing and talking and filming and raising awareness about this question.
Thank you, Matthew. Thank you all. Our panel is coming to us. It will be mission impossible, and I won't be able to do justice to everything. But let me tell you that it is pretty clear you all agree that business has a tremendous positive impact on society, and it cannot act alone. So teaming up with consumer organizations, social innovators, policymakers is needed. And it is part of the new social contract, something that we haven't done enough in the pre-COVID era. We really hope that this panel gave you a flavor of what it might look like, this new social contract, these kind of new conversations. Please join me in thanking all the panels for their contribution. Thank you so much. And be ready to join the main wrap-up in a few minutes. Thank you very much. And let's continue this conversation. Thank you.